Hey everyone, this is Romy here. I am your host for Shuttler Spirit, your premier place for elite badminton mindset, where we interview champions, legends, ambassadors, and individuals that help push the sport of badminton in a way that's not recognized traditionally. We really would love to showcase what people may not have known before so that you'll be able to innovate and think differently about the sport and get excited about badminton. So our guest today was world number one in the mixed doubles with his partner Gail Ems. In 2004, he won the silver medal at the Athens Olympics. In 2005, he won the All England title, and in 2006, he won the World Championship gold medal. He is currently the national coach for Badminton England and also an elite sport consultant. So without further ado, let's welcome Nathan. Nathan Robertson, welcome. How are
Thanks,
you?
thanks, guys, and hi everyone. I'm good over here in Milton Keynes.
Nice, nice.
Life is good. We're getting excited about the upcoming, obviously, Tokyo Olympics. So that's on the cards, and yeah, we're preparing for that in this crazy COVID world.
Yeah, that's definitely a lot. Lots have changed, and I guess the logistics of everything too, just organizationally, had to shift a little bit. You mentioned before when we just had a small conversation that it's going to be like meetings before you go into the actual tournament itself and the Olympics, right? So
yeah, there's a lot of meetings and a lot of information, and of course, for first-time Olympians, it's pretty exciting. But some of the experiences I would normally share with them about how everything is, that might be a little bit different at the moment. So it's also a new experience for me, even though I've been to several multi-sport games, Olympics and Commonwealths. This will be different. It won't be the same. It will still be amazing because they're still competing at the Olympics, and we've still got amazing chances to win medals and have that experience and represent Team GB, which is actual English people. We only get to do that once every 4 years. So that's a special feeling, and a jersey you can only pull on once every 4 years. Yes. So and Team GB is a flag and a party that has only had something like 4,000 representatives in the whole of its lifetime. So it's a small club, and everyone that gets the chance to pull on these jerseys, they'd be super proud.
Of course, everyone pay attention to the jersey. It's actually this year's. It looks fantastic. So yeah, I know.
Got your new fit there.
Just flexing too. Really. That's awesome. Awesome. So yeah, so today I guess as the tradition of Shuttler Spirit, we do want to talk about more the mindset behind the badminton game, a wonderful game that I know all of us here love and love talking about too. Want to jump into when you were playing at that elite level, during the Olympics, during Worlds, during All England, kind of that period of, I think 2004 to 2006, when you guys were like crushing the scene, which is fantastic. What was kind of the mindset when you guys were playing in the games, the conversation between you and your mixed partner, Gail, and also with your coach? I believe it was Andy, that coach.
Andy Wood, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. And what is it during the progress of the badminton games when you're winning, when you're trailing, and then also when you win the tournament and when you lose a tournament? Like there's so many different kind of emotions that go through that. But the floor is yours, and then we'll kind of discuss through and yeah, have fun with this too.
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. And when you go like a bit deeper into relationships and emotions and all these things, in any doubles partnership, the relationship and dynamic is so unbelievably important, especially when you get to higher up the rankings. Because the higher up you get, the more stress there is, the more tension there is, the more that's on the line. I would say that there's, you get to the bigger events and there's so much on the line, and it's like you might have built up 10 years to that event. So there's so much stress and pressure. And so that dynamic between you as people has got to work. I would say that when things are going well, it's really easy. It's such an easy game. And you don't actually have to think about much. You could talk about flowing and all those things that those things happen, and I've felt them, and they happen as a partnership as well. It's not just as an individual person, they happen together and you just get in that moment. It is rare that it's that easy. So that's obviously a lot to do with the people on the other side of the court, because they're there to challenge every aspect that we've got, both mentally and as badminton players. But yeah, the dynamic is the communication between you. There's not a lot of time in badminton matches to say a lot of things. There's no deep explanations during a match. So you really have to choose your words carefully. And I think the dynamic of a mixed doubles partnership is even more potentially fragile as well. We are different species, men and women. We're amazing different species who sometimes get on brilliantly and sometimes don't, and that's both in working and private life. But that's normal. So we have to be very careful about what we say in the highest stress moments to each other. And I think that myself and Gail did that very well, because we grew up together. Probably from 13, 14, we knew each other. So very young, and we also played together. So we had a lot of experience playing together. It wasn't like it was our first or second year playing together. So that experience was there, and that knowledge of who we were as people. So there was a bit of background to say, I have belief that when I'm talking to you in these really stressed moments, that you'll really respect me, even though there might be the hardest times of a tournament.
For sure.
So those moments are critical in high stress games, and you hope to get it right, but normally there's not always there's nothing to say, I've got this experience in an Olympic final and this is the right thing to say.
Exactly.
You've got an educated guess, and you hope that your thought process is correct.
I guess you try to run the course of what you guys have practiced throughout the years, right? It should be a reflex by that time. And I guess it depends on the different opponents that you guys play against, where you would know a certain kind of strategy to apply at that moment, and you try to just run the system, right? But are there, I guess, when there's surprises, or because there's always times where you don't, perform at the top of what you want, or from what you plan, then what would you, I guess, mentally, like, how do you jump back into that space? Like what you're talking about, like flow and stuff. It's hard to get into it, but like, is there a way to approach it?
It's that I don't. There is a way. There's a way of that you prep everything like you do. As a coach now, of course, I consider, and I always considered that our coach at that time, Andy Wood, had a very important role to play in getting our minds in the right frame of mind, either before or during a match, especially during a match when there was a lot of stress going on. It was a very calming influence.
Yes.
And both myself and Gail actually had quite excitable personalities. She was very feisty. I looked relaxed, but actually inside I also had this boiling anger when it wasn't going well for me, and I was always on the edge of losing it, and probably took it out. I took it out on a lot of line judges and umpires, and it was actually my release. That's how I released this thing. So I always have funny conversations with a few of the umpires now, and like to say, look, it was nothing personal. That was my only way of getting it out.
That's hilarious. Poor line judges. But
I think they got a tough job sometimes when there's so much emotion on the court.
Wow. But you containing it, like, do you practice trying to contain that, or do you just convert that?
No, you have your go-to moments when you're under stress.
Yes.
Mine weren't good. I'm totally honest about that. I definitely destroyed a lot of shuttles in anger, but that just became a go-to thing for me. But I could also do it, and then about 5 seconds later be totally focused again.
Okay.
I think that's a great point you make there, right? That you go to one extreme and then you can quickly turn around and regain focus, right? And then just even if you want to say when you were playing, and if you want to say even advances in how people are coached now to be mentally prepared and mentally sharp. You know, you as an athlete, then you versus you as a coach now, what kind of differences do you see in the ways that people approach, you know, having the right mindset when they get on court to, you know, if something goes sideways, how can I get back on track in a short space of time? Well, you know, could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, we talk about resetting a lot, but resetting is difficult when everything is going against you, or you feel like everything is going against you. And everyone's reset moment or way of doing will be different. So as a coach, I can't say this is the way you should do it, because everyone's very different. Some people might need to get angry, take out this frustration. But it's important, if they're doing it, they also mentally know, which is something I did. I might have been having a very angry conversation with an umpire in like externally, but internally I knew that I needed 20 seconds of break and break up the rhythm of the game. And I was resetting in my head, even though I was going through all these emotions with an umpire or with the shuttle.
Yes.
So I was just in that process of doing two things at once. And that's not easy to describe to a young player at all.
Exactly. External and internal, right?
Like, and they might not even understand what you're saying. Some people just see a red mist and they're just off, and then they can't get back though to the clear thought of what they need to do to win the next point. Exactly. So I wouldn't say I did it successfully all the time, but I think actually it worked for me a little bit.
Yeah, that sounds like an awesome kind of, I wouldn't say mechanism or a tool that you would utilize, where the external is like you know, following through while the inside is doing something else. It's like two different things that are happening, right? Yeah,
and it definitely didn't work as a young player. I would get really frustrated and the game's not going well, and I didn't have that recovery side of my mind. I hadn't trained that, so I would just go down and then very occasionally recover. Most of the time I would just dive.
Take another shuttle. Crash.
It'd just be a crash landing. There'd be no like recovery.
Well, then when did you find out about shifting it or utilizing it that way?
I think I learned from some older players. I definitely learned a lot from Simon Archer, who was a real great English player, GB player, Olympian, world medalist, Olympic medalist, and he had this fire inside him and this emotion, and he really used that battle across the net and the battle with the umpires, and he was so determined to win that mental battle, even though it wasn't always going well for him. So I definitely learned a lot from him, because I played with him when I was kind of 20 years old, which is young to take that step up to playing with one, like he was the best player in England. So that was a big learning moment for me.
Awesome. And where were the opportunities for utilizing these emotional skills? Were they always on court, or was off court also an opportunity that you took to kind of train that mentality, to look back into the game?
You can train it off court, but then I would say that it's so very difficult to train that moment of a world championship medal match or any medal match, major final. It's so difficult to do that, because you cannot replicate the emotion of that, and you cannot replicate the stress and the feeling. And we talked a little bit about the responsibility when you're in training. The responsibility on you is minimal. It's just your own view and maybe some of your training teammates and your coaches. But when you're at the tournament and the major championships, and you suddenly start thinking, okay, I've got the hopes of English badminton on me. If we win this, it could set our team up for the next 10 years financially. Exactly. These thoughts, they're all around. Where you compartmentalize them is another thing. Some people, it brings on too much pressure. Other people, it drives them on. I definitely wasn't someone who got nervous. I got excited, nice. Which would also come out as nerves sometimes. Not bad nerves. It was like just excited nerves. So I never before a match in the evening, I was like nervous or worried. I was just excited, really.
That's so cool. Like a lot of, I think the top athletes like you, I think that's a case of excitement over, or I don't know if it's a labeling of that energy, maybe potentially.
Yeah, it's still a nervous system, but it's
Yes.
kind of, when I'm excited, then you still have that feeling. And I think it's a similar feeling to being nervous about losing.
Yeah.
I don't think those feelings are much different.
Yes.
They're still the same feeling within the body. It's just how the mind is processing them.
I guess one like opens you up, and one kind of closes you down a little bit.
Yeah, one will close you down a bit and also tighten you up.
Yeah.
When it comes to the moment to perform.
Yeah.
Because that's obviously the most important moment, is when you step across the line and try and perform on the court as sports people. And one of them you'll still have that feeling, but you'll embrace then the moment when you step on and suddenly a crowd is a bonus. And your opponents, they're the exciting challenge, and you look forward to the battle or the war you're going to have over the net.
Sounds so exciting already. Makes me want to go play right now. So everything kind of starts adding rather than subtracting.
Yeah, and there's you have to look where you can take advantage.
Yes.
There's advantages. I mean, I always say that about players. Like, you need to use the crowd, and you need to, embrace what we have around us. So you can't shut down. So I don't really feel that's the best thing for athletes, is to shut down and just, people talk about like tunnel vision, and that's okay to be focused. But I think in our sport, where there's so many external factors, this tunnel vision is almost impossible, because you're engaging with your partner if you're in doubles, or you're engaging with your coach, or with the crowd, or with your opponent, and there's lots of dialogue going on, quite a lot.
Yes.
So it's not like it's a 100-meter sprint and you just shut down for those 10 seconds. Matches are long. So I think we have to embrace that side of it.
Yeah, there's so much dynamics that's happening even with your opponents too. It's a conversation too, right? So
yeah, there might be a huge rivalry, or it might be incredible respect. You see that also over the net, and it might be both. Both. I certainly had that in my career. I had rivalry, maybe hatred, maybe all sorts of things going on. So but that's just the game. That's what you got to embrace. There's a bit of everything involved.
Exactly.
Key there's how you use that emotion and to get the result that you're looking for.
Yeah.
No, totally. Is there a way to, I guess, when the crowd's favoring the opponents or your rivals at those situations, how do you shift your mindset, or do you block it off, or is it just like let it flow through you kind of a thing?
No, I have a good example of that was 2008 Olympics. And the first round we had in Beijing, we had the top Chinese pair, which was Zhengbo Gaoling, and this is again one of those moments where you can walk out to the arena and, like, I don't know how many it was, 8,000-10,000 Chinese, and I think there was 20 British fans. Yeah, half of them were our families, and then probably 10 others. So the majority were not in our favor.
Yes.
And I remember walking out thinking, this is exactly where I want to play these two. I was like, this is more motivation. I was like, I can't get any more motivation than playing these two in front of their own people. And their own fans. And I was like, yeah. And I knew that, we had this following, or known as a pair from playing Zhang Gaoling as well in previous Olympics. So they were very known within the Chinese, and I could sense there was an atmosphere that this was like the biggest game of the day in the hall and all these things. So it was, for me, I was just like, this is it. This is the moment. And it was not, there was no like going on nervous. It was just like, this is how it's supposed to be against these two.
Yeah. Oh, that is so cool. I don't know. It's like, how do you actually, that mindset, I guess, was it like trained from all the different kind of like world championships and games that you've played to get to that moment?
I mean, like I say, it's not something I would have had as a young athlete or a young badminton player growing up in my teens, and maybe not even early 20s. And it's something that's learned, definitely learned as an athlete and person, because we continually evolve. the hope as a coach now for me is that athletes can evolve quickly, because they don't have long careers. Some people say careers are long, but not many spend very long at the top. So when they're at the top, they need to really maximize their capacity there so they can achieve seriously, and to help them evolve into that person who can embrace or the majority of difficult situations and challenges they get. That's the hardest part as a coach, not teaching a skill or teaching them, I don't know, how to watch videos and improve themselves. The hardest part is about embracing situations which they've never been in.
Yes. Well, how do you create that environment though if they've never experienced it? I'm curious.
Yeah, you can't create that environment. That's something that's has to be just taught through. It's something that has to be taught through, and then you have to put them in that situation, even though they're not in it. You have to put them in it. Say, how are you going to react? How are we going to deal with this situation? How are we going to deal with this adversity?
Yes.
And would you say it's a bit more from, say, storytelling, kind of like how you just told that story about you in Beijing, right? Of relating to them in that way, to say, here is my experience, and learn. If you can learn as much as you can from my experience, then I can better look out for your blind spots, so you have less to worry about that way.
Yeah, that's definitely our role as people who have been through that and experienced that evolvement from young athlete to experience one who's using those situations as a positive. I know, that people don't read as much these days, which I think is a real shame, because I know when I was young, my coach just gave me endless books on great sportsmen, and those books are just filled with their experiences. It's not all about mentality, but their experiences and their highs and lows. And that basically is what it does. It's storytelling over and over again about their amazing sporting. Normally it's their sporting experiences at the highest level when they're most stressed. So I do feel like maybe athletes now are missing that a little bit. I mean, I know I'll always try and push these autobiographies and say you should read them. They're amazing experiences and they can use you, rather than just flicking through Instagram. That's probably not gonna that might and the average time people are spending on reading these things is like 3 seconds. It's so short. So they don't really sit down and read and educate themselves as much as I wish that they would, or as much as I did in the past, which I think benefited me a lot.
Of course. But I guess there is at least there's you there kind of guiding them through and putting them in those situations. But yeah, definitely it's a lot of the magic's, hidden in books, which I'm starting to understand more when the older I get to. It's like, oh, I should read a bit more. Especially being a photographer, I love looking at photos. So it's just, pictures. That's so cool. Now I need more words to really get me to think. And yeah, I'm putting myself in situations where I might not be in, because it is books are that way. I think it allows you to travel into spaces. And music does the same too, I think. Kind of art in general, but I think if you can utilize books and art to bring you into those moments, then technically you've kind of experienced a surface initial part of it, which I think it's super, super interesting. So
I've got loads of books behind me that I still read them. I read them multiple times.
Nice.
I was gonna ask which was one of your favorite books, or I guess one of the books that really stood out to you when you were younger, that had a big impact on you.
I remember reading Brad Gilbert's Winning Ugly, if you read that one, a tennis book. He was a tennis coach, so I got given that one when I was really young. But that was a good one, because that, as we know, is how many times we played great, amazing badminton. It's not very often, so we got to win kind of tough and ugly, and that's the best skills to have. So I remember that one. And my heroes growing up were Agassi, tennis, and Ivanisevic, who both they're a little bit unique in their characters. And I loved Andre Agassi's book. That was very eye-opening about his very turbulent life and a lot of difficulties really in life, even though his actual sporting career was unbelievably successful. I really enjoyed that one.
Which, if you could recommend one book just generally, that you think may be, I guess, impactful on, let's just say, younger players now of today, which stands out to you?
I'd probably say Winning Ugly. I mean, it's a really old book now. I reckon it's 25, 30 years old.
Yeah,
that's awesome. I will go read that.
If you can learn that skill and you can win ugly a lot, then you're going to have a very successful career.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
That's fantastic. No, this is awesome. I guess jumping into, well, like Charles kind of touched on it, where, you know, as a coach, we did talk about, you know, how you try to inspire the players themselves. But at the transition point of you being an elite player to become a coach, like how did you shift that, because it's a totally different mindset of, you know, it's more like creating environment more than playing in the environment, I guess.
Yeah, it's an unbelievably different way of life, being as an athlete, where everything's focused on you and you can be really, really selfish and single-minded in a lot of the things you do, because a lot of the things are provided for you to be able to make it really simple. And as a coach, you have to have this much broader picture, not only about the players you're coaching and how to get them to achieve their dreams and hopes, but we also have to have a broader picture on, well, you have to give back as well as players. You've got to give back, and especially when we're in a squad system, we got to give back all the time to consistently inspire the next generation. That's one of our roles as well, which is something you don't think a lot about as an athlete, because you're so single-minded, focused on achieving. And then, you know, I remember as a player, and now listening to a lot of players, is you know, acknowledging what they receive. We don't hear a lot about that. We just hear about, we wish we could have this, that, and this, and a few things we're not getting. So as an athlete, that we don't often acknowledge what we are receiving, and so it's a little bit sad, that, but I also knew that as a player, that we tend to moan more about what we don't have rather than acknowledge. And only on reflection, when you get a little older, when you think, actually, I didn't really want for hardly anything, and I was, you know, and when you're given the chance to perform and you don't have a lot of stuff going on in your head, then that's when you realize that you were given a lot. And it's a privileged position, I would say that.
For sure. So it's more in kind of retrospect that you would appreciate it more than.
Yeah, I'd appreciate it more, but I also understand the single-mindedness of athletes. But it's the coach's job to broaden that thought a little bit more, and to mature those athletes. That's what we do. If we're teachers as coaches or teachers or parents, that's what we have to do, is broaden our mindset of our students. To be a bit more considerate. It doesn't mean that they're not absolutely focused on the task. It's just being considerate. So it's just to broaden the mindset.
Would you think that being considerate would dissipate that single-mindedness for the intensity of it?
I mean, that's the challenge. You never want to take that away, because that's where the fire is. That's where the focus is. But you can have it. I mean, you hear it a lot in great sportsmen's thank you speeches. When they absolutely praise everyone, all their teams. You hear it. I'm specifically really remembering tennis players now, these amazing tennis players like Federer and Djokovic and Nadal. You know, they're instantly amazing team support system around them, and they're very respectful of that, and also their opponents' teams. Yes. So you hear that straight away from those guys, but they're experienced guys. You probably wouldn't hear it so much of a 18-year-old.
Yeah, exactly. It's like winning is winning. Yes.
Yeah.
That's all.
I think that has a lot to do with just, I guess, maturing in whichever sport that we're in, right? And I think as we mature, there is that phase or period that we go through of realizing that we ought to be grateful, right? Because, I know even for me growing up, and, maybe you experience this as well, Nathan, right? Of those that went before us would often talk about, well, here's what I had versus what you now have, right?
Yeah.
And we did without this, and now you have that. But there is that level of appreciation that you do find the real champions of the sport, right? And not necessarily someone winning at something, but just a champion of the sport itself. You find that gratefulness that's there, that, as you said, if we were younger and had that, it would definitely do a lot more for us.
Yeah, it would calm us, and we'd be able to balance that kind of having the fire, always bringing it when you step on the court. But externally, you would build better relationships, you'd build more trusting relationships, and those relationships would actually make you a better player, for sure. So yeah, for me, I always, when I'm working with the players I've worked with for the last kind of, even in junior badminton, then it's all about trust and communication. We can go a long way with those two things. Without either one of those, then it's very difficult to really take a journey together.
Yeah, for sure.
I guess like when people know kind of your achievements, and I'm sure some know your personality in kind of the English team already, especially the junior side of things. But has that allowed you to connect a lot quicker with them because they knew your achievements? Like there was that trust established that Nathan's looking after me kind of a thing already? Or did you have to like reintroduce yourself again through that whole process?
Yeah, I mean, certainly your past experiences, they obviously help you in coaching terms, because in any sport, if you've experienced something that no one else has, it's seen as a benefit. Yes. But that still doesn't mean that makes that person a better coach, because it has to be about the communication and about the people skills. Yes. And I'm not saying I'm always successful at that. I've been successful with certain players, and other players I haven't connected with, and it's not been successful. But then that is life. You cannot expect to connect with all the players in the same way. And I think that because we've got so many different personalities, we might have 10 people in our team, or 20 people. So if we connect really, really well with 5, I think it's quite successful, as long as we don't connect really, really badly with the other 5, and it's still a good working relationship. That's okay. And I always say that about junior players when they're coming through a system. I always didn't think it was a good system when you had a different junior coach every 2 years, because they would just get passed on to the next coach, and then they never got a chance to build a relationship. Never got a chance to build trust with a national junior coach, because they just moved on to the next age group. And I don't think that is a good system. So I'd prefer to see a coach take a player from 10 years old to 18 years old and go on that journey with them. I think that would have a better chance of developing a great relationship and a better player. And then they could transition that player through to the senior team and help and assist with that. So there would be more trust that way.
I guess with the development of coaches, how do you develop that part? Because it seems like that's where what needs to happen is a system of creating coaches that can produce those type of 10 to 18 results. Right? Yeah. And what do you guys do, I guess, or is it just like past players that want to become coaches kind of a thing?
Oh, it's a natural progression for a player to become, they have that experience and they have that skill and knowledge. As a badminton player with a badminton racket, they have that skill, so they can actually go on and show that. And they also they have the experiences. So personally, of course, I have some of those experiences, so I can share them, like we've already been talking about. And then it is also our responsibility to educate and coach the next level of coaches. So we should be doing that. We should be mentoring and passing it down and doing a lot of coaching workshops, which aren't all about just how you coach a smash or how you do that. A lot of it is the mental side. So we should do a lot of mental coaching.
I guess that's where you talked about the giving back part. The more training that happens, the more they're prepped for it, potentially becoming a coach in the future too.
Yeah, we do that. We have mentoring systems where a senior coach will take on a younger one, and those sort of systems are in place. And we have actually changed our coaching setup so that it is possible for one coach to go on the journey with an 18-year-old player and go through and take them all the way to the games. So an Olympic Games. So that's possible. Yeah, it's a new system though. It's not got 10 years of experience. So we will see how it works. I don't see that happening in many other countries at the moment, but it's very new. So we'll see how it evolves for us.
Working out the kinks there. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think you even touched on it earlier. Like a big part of it is communication and trust. You know, and I think, as you mentioned, mentoring other coaches, not just athletes, but the coaches in how they establish trust and communicate is a big part of it. Which I think a lot more people could definitely utilize and build upon. So I think, you know, that's really great that you have kind of set that tone in your coaching.
Yeah, well, I just strongly believe it's the most important thing. But actually, when I don't know about all the coach education courses around the world, or what we're doing in badminton Europe or in badminton England, I know what the coach qualification book looks like and the course looks like, and the majority of it is a lot to do with technical stuff and safeguarding and all this kind of stuff. There's not really any big sections on mental trust, relationship, building up that and all those things. So I'd like to see more of that in those coach education courses.
For sure.
Are you looking to write one, Nathan?
I'm looking to talk about one and get someone to write it.
Someone else write it.
Something along those lines.
Yes, for sure. No, definitely you're more than wealth of knowledge. I think that the first time we met too, prior to this meeting, the meet and greet we had, your personality as just even a human being, not as an elite badminton player, is so respectable. Like you really know how to have fun while conversing and exploring together with someone else. And I really appreciate that since the beginning, because I've never known you before. Charles has, from back in the days, and I'm sure you guys had your awesome stories, which some I think we can't really share, but those are really exciting stuff. But yeah, I'll like to pass kind of the mic to Charles to maybe ask a little bit more about kind of league and the importance of having a league to develop players and also the community. But yeah, Charles.
Yeah, well, I mean, Nathan, for you played in the Danish league, and then you were very instrumental with the league in England, National Badminton League. If you could touch on that in a sense of just how you participated in the National Badminton League coming about, because I know it was something that was in the development for many years before it actually came about. But if you could touch on that.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a thing. It's a story that goes quite a few years back. So even when I was playing, obviously, you did say that I played in the Danish league, but I started playing in the German league when I was a young adult. Then went to Denmark and finished my career in the French league. So I have big experience of these three, probably the biggest leagues in Europe. And the strongest ones. And when I was coming to the end of my career, I think 2010, 2011, I'd seen all these leagues, and I just so strongly believed that England was missing such a big part of the development system by not having this league where the top players in the country could play with developing young players, and also the kind of junior players, they could go and watch the top players more, because there's really not much opportunity for them to go and watch our best players in person. We have the All England and maybe the national championships, but that's it. So there's no regular opportunity. So I really strongly pushed with our chief executive and coaches that we really needed it, and we should invest at least exploring it. So we started exploring it and what it might look like, and we got the ball rolling, and it kept rolling and get better, and we got a lot of great ideas about how it would entertain people and how it'd be a televised event and new systems and new scoring. And we did some things that were revolutionary as far as badminton, like power play and double point points. Power play points worth 2 points, and timeouts and all these kind of things. So and we launched it, and it was really great. It did cost a little bit of financial backing. The association backed it and really went in strong with it at the start, and we got it televised. We had players from multiple other countries coming, and we got our top players involved. So really positive, and it was growing. And unfortunately, for our our own development of our sport in our country, that we took a big hit after Rio Olympics, and we lost all our funding from the government, which was it's millions of pounds. So it's a big hit. And the association had to make several changes, and one of them was to take away the funding for the league. It was just one of those ones that was seen as a big expense, and it was. So that was a really a big moment for as far as league development and the ideas how it would develop and grow. Personally, I was really disappointed, but I know a lot of people were. I'm pretty sure everyone at the association was disappointed at everything they had to pull backing away from. But I'm still very hopeful that it's something we want to do. I know it's still talked about a lot as a really important tool, because we have a lot of players in England who are going to other countries in Europe. A lot. We have, if our team is 25 players, we have 18 to 20 going off in other countries in Europe. And that benefits that individual for that moment, but it benefits that other country more and takes away from our country. And I think that the balance it's hard to find that balance, and we have to take that back with hopefully our own league again in the future.
Definitely would love to see that rebirth of it, because I share a very similar passion in the sense of it's kind of how IBL, Ignite Badminton League, came about. Like me coming from little Jamaica, we had all sorts of leagues: clubhouse, business house, school leagues. And my time in Europe, in Denmark and in Malaysia, saw different leagues, and then coming to Canada, didn't see one outside of the varsity, and thank you again, because years ago you and I had a little meet and greet conversation at Starbucks in downtown Toronto, and you shared quite a bit of your experiences. Thank you again for that. No, it was really helpful, right, in our development. But it was definitely something I saw missing here, and there have been attempts, to get leagues going here and there, but not on I want to say a national scale or the highest level, right? That had long-term effects or development, so to speak. So I think it was a great initiative, and I really hope that you and Badminton England find a way to regain that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it will happen again. It's just how it's going to happen. It's difficult to do exactly the same thing, especially when the teams were so heavily involved, and they were obviously just quickly out of the equation. So to make it reborn again the same way exactly is very difficult. But I know there's always a wish. Players, they would prefer to play at home 100%. So there's a wish from the players. There's a wish from like Badminton England and English fans to make it happen. So when everyone is wanting the same thing, then we just have to find the possibility to make it happen again.
Oh, for sure. Oh.
Yeah, and a bit of financial backing.
Well, I mean, there are different ways, means and ways. So keep exploring, keep digging.
We will do.
But yes, no, that's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all the knowledge and experience. Just wanted to jump back into that player coach side of things, where are there any current players or past players that you really respected and admired? I think you kind of shared a little bit on that, but also the current players, which style do you play like most for the current players, and who do you think are the top three right now that you see in the game of mixed doubles specifically?
In mixed double, firstly, my past rivals / very respected opponents. Most people obviously would think like Zhang Jun Gaoling, because that was an Olympic final, but I didn't play them that much. It was only in some major times when I played them. So I played Nova Widianto so many times. Great respect for him. Even now he's coaching, so it's always good to see him. And we had so many battles. I think it was probably 50-50 after like 20 matches or something. So,
oh wow, that's crazy.
We played a lot of really great close games, and I think we always equally respected each other's skill and passion on the court.
Was there a style similarity or?
Yeah, a little bit. I think we were quite similar. We had very different partners. He tended to have a skill-based net partner, whereas I had Gail, who was this real dynamic attacking player. So yeah, it was slightly different styles, but I think we just respected each other on a skill level and competitor level. That was really good. And also with the Thai pair, Sudket and Sarah Lee, we had so many battles with those guys and really good. But the Thais were so very respectful. Really great. And again, now if I see them, would be very friendly to them. It'd be really nice always seeing those guys. So they're the two probably opponents who I played the most.
As you played more with them, like did the respect like obviously like gradually come in more and more as you guys played more with each other because you see each other so much? Or
yeah, I think so. The more battles you have, the more wars you have, which aren't toxic. They're good. Like there's good wars. You can have good wars.
Yeah, for sure.
Whereas at the end, you might be really angry, but you can look over there and think, yeah, you're just better than me today. I respect you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not an easy thing to say, especially when you've got some anger in you, but you know.
For sure.
Yeah, there were some players who I was always respectful to over the net. So
that is fantastic.
But yeah, the modern players, yeah, I mean, the game's evolved. The game is always evolving, and now it's so fast, and the reactions have gone up a level. And the Chinese in the mixed doubles have definitely, Zheng Siwei took it to another level of speed and skill.
Yeah.
And it'll be exciting to see him. We haven't seen him since All England 2020.
Yeah.
So it'll be almost a year and a half when we see them in Tokyo. So it'll be exciting to see where they've come to. Hopefully, they'll be a bit rusty.
For you guys.
Yeah, we haven't played any competition. I think they'll be training amazing, but there'll be a competition rusty, and then we'll take advantage of that.
Yeah, it's awesome.
But those guys are favorites, and yeah, I mean, the Indonesians always come to the major events, always there. So Jordan and his partner Octavia, they'll be very dangerous, I think, because he's a player who I think he turns up when he really wants to win.
Yeah, that smash he has, it's ridiculous.
I think he's got a regular focus, and then he's got a I want to win this tournament focus. So I think it's slightly higher. So, and I can only imagine he'll be here for the games. So I see him as a very dangerous player for every single pair, even the Chinese.
Yeah.
And I hope.
Guess, sorry.
I was just saying, I know we have a pair in the top 8 in Ellis and Smith, so
yes,
they've got potential to cause serious upset to the ones above them. So and in history of the mixed at the games, there's always so many tight matches, and it's always only 21-19, 22-20. It's that close between quarterfinal, semi-final, or medal. It's always really, really tight. So it's possible, and there's always someone from outside the top who goes and gets medals.
I guess also the Japanese team like Yuta Watanabe and Higashino playing in Tokyo too. Like,
oh yeah, I mean, they obviously took the All England title this year, but there wasn't
no competition really.
But I think it's tough for Yuta. He's he's the big chance for Japan in both events, and it's difficult to be really successful in one event. I kind of have the feeling he will be successful in one of his events,
but not both.
But not both.
Yeah. Like you have that experience too, where you're in doubles and mixed too. Like, does it really, like, physically, I'm sure you guys train for it, but the mental side of things, does it shift a lot being in doubles and mixed?
Yeah, and you have to have your partner playing at their absolute best, and it doesn't always happen in both events.
That's so true.
And it's just so very rare that somebody can go and win both events or be in the final of both. We have hardly seen it in the Olympic Games as well, because there's that added pressure, that added tension. It uses more energy, and yeah, I think I'm just uncertain. I know that Yuta is a young, like one of the most amazingly natural players with all the ability in the world, but I don't believe he's been that successful in 2 events in one tournament when the whole world has been there. So it's a big ask for him to do that for the first time in Tokyo. He could do. It would be amazing for the Japanese home fans, and there'll only be home fans there.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess they have that advantage. There's no opposing fans, even if it's only 20.
Yeah, exactly. That's hilarious. But I guess too, like coming back to that world perspective of when the world is looking at you, between Worlds and Olympics, in your experience, was there a different pressure? I know the time difference, like the 4 years versus like things that happen annually. Like, was there a big shift in Olympics when you had to?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say mentally it's a totally different feeling. Personally, the World Championships is another badminton event, which is only badminton. It's the hardest one. I'd say it's the hardest one to win, because it's normally the biggest field. It's slightly bigger than the Super Series events or World Tour events that we had. So slightly bigger field, one more match, whereas the Olympics is not the strongest field in the world.
Sure.
Because you don't have the best 32 pairs. Because of representation and all this stuff. So, and now the doubles draws are even smaller. I know they're in groups, but the doubles draws are smaller. So you can actually have a much easier draw in the Olympics, even though it's still not easy to win a medal. But the feeling is just very different. Worlds is a badminton event. The Olympics is just much, much bigger. Yeah. There's so much more that goes into it. There's so much more preparation. There's the kit, you're wearing kit you've never ever worn in your life. And it will be a once only thing. You'll wear it. The feeling's so different after as well, if you succeed in Olympics, of thinking that you've won a medal for Team GB or your country. And that pride is just on another level to a badminton World Championships.
Yeah,
which is more personal. It's more personal at the World Championships, I think, whereas the Olympics is just so much bigger externally, and you feel that feeling.
So you're more included into the world, I guess, in the Olympics, whereas like the world is like you're more for yourself, kind of.
Yeah, it's just people know you who don't even know badminton. They don't know. Like we had so many people after the Olympics where we got a silver medal. They had no idea. They've never watched badminton. They've never been badminton fans. And then for 2 matches in their lifetime, they're big badminton supporters, and then they're loving it. And you're walking around on the street, and someone's like, "I didn't even like badminton, and now I love it, and I play once a week." And that's just
fantastic.
Watch 2 of your games, and that's what the Olympics does. It gets sports fans or even non-sports fans watching sports they'd never watch, and supporting people and getting involved in that emotional journey. And that's why multi-sport games are amazing.
Yeah. Well, going into the Olympics, did you feel that kind of duty, or it was like quite focused? Like,
no, I didn't actually feel it. I mean, it wasn't my first games in Athens. It was my second games. And I felt the responsibility of being the favorite to win a medal from Team GB, and we'd won a medal 3 years earlier through Archer and Good in the mixed doubles. So I knew the feeling of being on a team when it won a medal. But I had no idea how non-badminton fans would embrace the sport and suddenly become huge fans of yours, who had got no interest in badminton like 1 week earlier. So you just can't be ready for and understand that feeling. You just don't understand it. But it's amazing when you get those compliments when you come back, and we walk through the airport and people are throwing shuttlecocks at us, and You know, these aren't badminton fans. These are just random TV.
Like multi-shuttle after you come out of the airport.
and they've just got caught up in the whole emotion of Olympics and Team GB and winning medals and all those things.
Oh, so such a celebration. I think that can kind of sum up today's conversation too. Nathan, I really see you as a person that sees badminton as a celebration, like in all different aspects of things. And it makes things like, I don't feel nervous when I talk to you about badminton, and it makes me playing badminton also more, I don't know, joyous, I think too. So, and I think if more players can definitely have that kind of attitude, you know, going into the court and, you know, playing these large tournaments to really celebrate the sport.
Yeah, I really want the players to celebrate, enjoy it, because it's a privilege. That's what I feel. I know it's the athletes and players, and we're doing a job because, well, one, we get paid and we need to get paid to live. So one part, but it's also, we're there to entertain. That is why sports events are put on. That is why the Badminton World Tour is there. It's not for everyone to get paid. It's to entertain the world through our sport.
Yes.
And that's why we host the All England. We want to entertain our nation through badminton and get as many people playing badminton as possible and loving it. So that's what we sometimes don't think about as athletes in that moment, is that we're so in our own world that we're just a bit taken over by that we don't think about, actually, why are we actually here? We're not just here to earn money. We're here to actually entertain. This is why the tournament's on. So I say that a lot to players, but it's still all about winning and losing.
Sure.
But because then you might enjoy a better life if you win more matches than you lose.
Of course.
It might be less stress.
Yeah.
So you can take a little bit of stress out of your life, but we are entertainers first and foremost, as far as what our sport wants us to do.
Yes. I guess the macro view and the micro view is slightly different, but the intention can be anything. Like being successful in it is both in the micro and macro. And you've definitely developed, you know, from that micro angry kind of player to, like, you know, being an awesome coach that can share these experiences in a very calming way, I think too. So
no, we've got to embrace them, you know. So many comments about we're not here for a long time or whatever it is. It's but we've got to embrace all those tournaments, all those experiences, because we don't have them that often. Sometimes it feels like you've been in the game forever, but it's still I'm like, Olympics, it's the most exciting thing. Let's get excited about it.
You know,
it's time to step on the stage and entertain and give people what they've tuned in to watch.
Oh, that's so fantastic. No, I guess I've asked all the questions that I want to ask, but it's definitely such a privilege to hear you talk about, you know, just the mentality towards badminton throughout your whole badminton experience in life, and even currently too. And Charles, I don't know if you have anything else you'd like to add or ask.
Well, I mean, it's been good. I mean, you shared quite a bit, you know, as Roman just said. So, thank you, Nathan, for that, because you've had a very, how should I say, an illustrious career, right? And you've transitioned into coaching now and giving back. And I think that's a huge part. You touched on that earlier, right? As athletes, it's giving back to what you gain to come up in the sport. And I love how you frame that, in a sense that we're here to entertain, because a lot of people kind of miss that, right? And we kind of come up with a bit of this individualistic way of, okay, yes, you have to have that mindset to, as you earlier said, have that file. But then there comes a point where we have to see the bigger picture. Right. And one of the ways that we give back is, how can we entertain more people on a bigger stage to get more people involved so that the sport can evolve, right? Because that way, then everybody benefits, everybody gains as we grow. So I really appreciate you putting it into perspective that way. That was awesome.
Yeah. Oh, it's about, life's about enjoyment. It's not about stress, and we're all trying to alleviate stress. That's why most of us, when we think about sport, we smile and we think about the release it gives us. And I think if we put entertainment and enjoyment together, then it should be a good package.
Yeah.
Totally. No.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, man.
I feel really good after this talk, by the way. So I'm really enjoying it, and I was fully entertained for sure. Are there any like last words you would give to, I guess, athletes that are, you know, up and coming, and want to take badminton seriously, as a career?
Well, I'd say it can give you so much, but as long as we approach it in the right mindset, it's not. There's much bigger things in life. There's much more important things in life, which there always will be in regards to family and health and all these things, which only when you get older and you start having family members getting even older, and it becomes very sad, and sometimes sport takes a real serious backward step and backseat. So I'd say just enjoy it and embrace the moment. And yeah, I think enjoyment's big. Once you stop enjoying something, whether it's being a coach, being a player, then just step away and take on another role. It can still be in the sport, and it can still be, if it's in your blood, you can still love it. You can start badminton league if you want. You can design a badminton racket. You can design kit if you've got the design and passion and you enjoy it. You just, you know, we shouldn't be so close to exploring other avenues, especially if it's a passion that we got, because that's important to do things we're passionate about.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. For sure.
Oh, thank you so much again, Nathan, and appreciate everything and the time that you've offered. I'm sure if you guys have any other questions, you can leave it down in the comments too, and we can approach Nathan with those questions too when he's free. He's quite busy right now. So, but thank you again, and yeah, see you guys next time. And hope this is of value to everyone too.